And we're live, right? As Jose's choking on coffee. Hold on, let me turn this on. Yeah. So,
Oh,
welcome to
God.
the Hello Spiritual Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Amit.
And I'm your other host, Jose. Oh my God.
You good there, buddy?
Dude, I was drinking some kombucha and it went the wrong pipe.
The timing,
All right.
the
I'm
timing
good.
of
I'm over
that,
here crying, bro. I'm crying. I'm so happy about this podcast that I'm crying.
the timing of that was like perfect.
Yeah, it couldn't have gotten any better. That's for sure. All right, people. Well, welcome to today's call. Happy Friday. I hope people are staying warm. Obviously, a lot of buzz is going around the Bay Area because we have snow for the first time since 1976. Don't ask me why I know that fact because I just know things, right? I know everything. I'm just kidding. I don't know everything. Um, but yes, I hope everyone's staying safe, nice and warm. They got a chance to go out and enjoy the snow. I actually tried to go and the gate was closed and the snow was already burning out, but I'm gonna send it up to Tahoe tomorrow with my best friend Eric. Go shoot some photos, and we're hoping to get stuck in a blizzard. That's for sure.
Yeah, we hope that you're staying safe and warm. That I know there's a storm going on throughout the
Yeah,
U.S. right now, so wherever you are, we hope that you're doing all right and staying safe, staying warm, and caring about the things that really matter, like family and the basics. Self care comes in high priority, as we talk about a lot in this podcast, which kind of goes into what we wanted to talk about. Right, we've been doing a series about uh, a myriad of things that come up in these transitional phases from like there's an idea, I want to change something, and I want to go do something about it. The
yeah,
previous episodes talked about the emotional regulation around that, the blocks that may come from it, the traumas that may be over there. We talked a lot about the modalities that we use, that we actually
yeah.
like living, breathingly use and are held accountable by voicing it on this platform.
Yes, yes,
So where we wanted to talk about like, all right, the step after that swing of the habit or whatnot,
mhm,
the action, getting into action, talking
yes,
about
yes,
what what are things that we can incorporate, what are modalities that we could do, and what is the thought processes that you and I individually and probably in general as a whole that allow us to achieve these goals,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And if I could just summarize the last few episodes and what that led us to this one was we equipped you with tools, modalities, and practices and awareness to connect with the body, connect back to self, shift the mindset so you could feel a little more embodied to step into the action that you take to move forward in whatever is a goal or an accomplishment or something that you're wanting to do in life. I feel like we've been prepping you all with the previous episode to allow you to step into that more confidently, more embodied in yourself, and having the right mindset around shifting into something different. Right. So I think it's really beautiful that we've been able to tie in all the episodes together. And now we're going to get into action because at the end of the day, you can have this beautiful awareness, you can have this beautiful shift in mindsets and embody a lot of things in the body. But if there's no action behind that, like it doesn't really mean anything. And if, for us, that's you and I, our background are from AA. Like there's a lot of steps that we had to take in order to get into action. And one of the things that they always talked to us about was faith without work is dead. So you can have all this faith in the world, but if there's no action behind that faith, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just words. It's just ideas and thoughts.
Exactly. And then it
There's
it turns into like recycling that type of emotion, right? Of like,
right.
I have hope that something's gonna change. It's like the first thing
What is
that
it, man? What is it? What is it? Say it.
what is it? The first thing that comes to mind is like I remember seeing a YouTube video around like this comedian or something. He's saying like there's there's these women that would just like sit in this room is like, I'm gonna manifest this like awesome boyfriend and like not do anything about it, just sit on the couch. Just like, what do you think he's gonna climb up the balcony and like come in your door like, hey, what's up? I'm here. And
I mean, you never know. If that does happen, you may not want to deal with that person. That might be a creep trying to come to your window.
and I think the term manifest gets thrown out around a lot without a lot of conception around there's always a portion of action over there. Right.
Mhm.
On the last video I talked about different vibrational type of energies. Lower vibrational is like, sad, fear, anger. Then the transitionary thing is like of hope, right?
Mhm.
Midway. And the other ones are of doing. And then eventually the higher ones are of being, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then like the transitionary space of this is like, maybe I can do the thing, setting a plan to do that, and then like starting out doing the actions, just like we were talking
Yeah.
about the end of the last episode, which was like Bambi didn't know how to walk right off the bat. He was over there just like, wah, 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 right?
Wobble
And
wobble.
wobble wobble do the and it comes to a point where you're like, all right, this is experience for what's to come, for the hope to get integrated back again. The hope is like it gets you started for a moment, but it's not going to carry you the whole way.
Yeah.
There's going to be the integrations of self-doubt, there's going to be integrations of the shadow, and when you're in motion, those have less weight compared to when you're not in motion.
Mhm. Yeah. I
So
really like.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna acknowledge you bringing up hope, because that's something that I've recently heard that hope is beautiful. We all have it, but it's not a sustainable thing. We can't live off hope. There has to be, like you said, tangible things, structure, discipline to put in our lives so it could carry us forward into the goals that we're trying to accomplish. Um, why do you think a lot of people fail in their New Year's resolution? They have this hope of a new year, new me, new this, new that. But if you're just living in like hope and like ideas and thoughts, but there's no action behind, there's no structure behind it, it doesn't really mean anything. And so I think that's why it was really beautiful that we've been able to work through some limited beliefs in our previous episodes, question our thoughts, change that narrative, connect it with the body. Okay, now let's move forward. Let's step into that. Let's build that structure. And we will be talking about some steps on this episode where you can use some of these steps to move forward and build a foundation where you could, a solid foundation that you could rely on. That's solid.
Yes.
For some reason, I thought you were going to say something and you kind of looked away.
Like multitasking at the same time. I can send the message. Hold on.
Wait,
There you
who
go.
do you send the message to?
On every podcast, I like to try to just put something in the chat for
Nice,
whoever's
nice.
whoever's in there.
We
So
appreciate whoever's on the call. I can't see it right now, so
yeah, so we're gonna talk about after the whole mental thing of like, okay, I've decided on something that I want to change as a habit or thing that I want to walk through. Um, Making the decision towards it
mhm,
and realizing what blocks are on there along that path to walk through. We talk a
mhm.
lot of the modalities of working through some trauma, working through the narratives, and like it's going to come back at a lighter phase in this action step.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what is that like iconic saying of like plan to fail, failing to plan? It's like you plan to fail or something like that.
Yeah, if you plan to fail, you plan no. People know what we're talking about.
So it goes into space of like if there's something out there that you want to achieve, write that down.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's like the what part of it. What is something that you
Mhm.
intend to accomplish or a goal or something that you need a shift that you want to like work on and like why is it important to you?
Yeah, yeah. The why is a huge indicator on if you are gonna pursue this or not. Like, what is that why? Like, why are you wanting to do this? And sometimes we have to get to a very hopeless place for that why to mean a lot, in my experience.
I agreed. That's like that gift of desperation
Desperation.
at
Yeah.
a certain point
Mhm.
because maybe for something that came up for me is I don't think I can do it because of imposter syndrome, whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? Maybe
Limited belief.
limiting belief, that's a narrative inside the head. So I won't give it as much energy when I'm in the day to day life because I'm like, oh, I think I'm doing the right thing here. But chances are, the more that I put time and energy into the thing that I want to do
Yeah.
and have more consistency with that, the chances are that I will actually embody and do the thing that I set out to do rather than just thinking about it, which is what you talked about at the beginning part of this podcast.
Mhm.
So let's say videographer, for instance, like that's something that I wanted to do. And it's the why is like I love doing it. You know, you can
Mhm.
tell a story through the lens and have the control of like what you end up seeing and whatnot, and you get to see life in a different way through another person's lens, specifically mine. And it's just fun, like making the skate videos back in the day. Like it's fun. It's
Yeah.
it's like
Creating.
yeah, it's a creative outlet. And I did not really have a plan other than let me just shoot a bunch of videos and edit them how I kind of want. And it started off with small energy put into that of like, okay, maybe I'll do it today. Then like a few weeks will go by and I'll do something else again. And that's me without a plan. That's me like I'll kind of do it. Right. So
Yeah.
the duration of time to achieve the level of the goal that I want to hit gets delayed if there's no plan.
Mhm.
If I set goals
Yeah.
out there, at least I'll go towards them a little quicker. Even if I don't
Mhm.
get to them, I'll be further along than where I am if I didn't have the goals.
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of reminds me of that concept around like fail forward. Yeah, I'm serious.
No, like I've been talking about chaotic positive as a thing. That's literally what it is. Of like,
That should be an episode, chaotic positive. People are like, oh, I love that.
it's not even on the chart, right? There's like chaotic something or neutral or something of the sort. There's no chaotic positive. I remember talking about this on one of the podcast episodes like a year ago, and I'm like, this is just my own concept. Like, this is just the way that I frame it, so that regardless of how chaotic life gets in my life, I have a bunch of moving parts all at the same time. It still feels like I'm doing something forward
Mhm.
towards it in each one of these buckets, and
Mhm.
I had to reframe it. Otherwise, I'm like, oh, this is too much. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
fun. It's an adventure. I'm just like exerting this I don't know, hyperactivity into these buckets
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
some plans developed towards each of the goals. Right.
Yeah.
So it segues into what the plan is for anyone's goals, right?
Yeah. I mean, you've kind of already touched the first one, which is, what is it that you want to accomplish? Is it a goal or internal shift, whatever the case may be? Next part was like, what is the why of that? Why is it important to you? And then, what I try to do is, have I tried something before to change that? Was I successful? So what you're kind of doing is you're reassessing like what happened last time when I tried to do this. Like where was the flaws? Where was the part where I failed, quote unquote failed? Did I not build the structure? Did not build the discipline that I need? Did not have a support network that supported me and held me accountable? Like you and I have a men's group that when we say something on there, like the guys are going to call us forward when they see us next time.
Exactly. And that's the support for that, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually interesting that you say that because like in the men's group, there's been a lot of how to describe this epiphany moments that come from expressing where you're at. Like the I'm gonna plug in a little bit for it right here of like support groups are high key pivotal to both
Yes.
mine and Jose's growth. Reason
Mhm.
being is like having a safe space to be able to express what's coming up and being seen and heard
And
by our fellow
acknowledged.
peers to then be like, all right, what are you gonna do about it?
Yes.
Not in
Yes.
that like instigative
Calling
type
you
of
forward.
way, but
Calling you
like
forward.
if this really means something to you, what are the things you're gonna do about it? What can we hold you accountable for?
Mhm.
Which goes into that plan step, right? So this is a co-regulation through our peers,
Mhm.
and I think having having that space and also like thinking of like what is tangible to make as a plan to do like digestible steps, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
If I break this down, because I want to segue away from the why. So, what is it? Why could be I just wanted something new to like. This means more to me because of the family reasons and whatnot. But in general, the underlying portion of why is getting a different experience and perception out of life that goes deeper so that you're present, regardless of whatever the hell it is. Right?
Mhm.
We get tired of being playing the avatar or the role that we're at. Usually that comes in the form of depression, anger, anxiety, whatever it is, it's time to change.
Mhm.
The irony of that is like the constant in life is change.
Yeah.
So getting used to that fact means that like being open, being available, acknowledging that other people know some things that you
More
don't.
than I do. Yeah.
I don't know everything.
What do you mean, Amit? We know everything. That's why we have a podcast.
There was a post that I seen. He was like something around like why don't men go to therapy? They make podcasts, and I was dying over that.
Hey, I do therapy and I do a podcast. Actually, I'm gonna get a new therapist. So they just email me to like, hey Jose, there's a new available therapist. Cool. And she does somatic work, which is perfect. I was like, I want somatic work. Need that in my life. So, anyways, that's a little side note. But yes, we do therapy, we do podcasting, we have men's group, we hold each other accountable. Are we perfect? No. We're humans? Yes. But we're here and we're thriving and we're doing our best.
So this is the end result of doing both. that, that's what I'll say. So that's the other thing in there. What I do remember for the why is like don't do something just for the sake of someone else. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Do it for
So
yourself.
that's why I bring in the importance of like you are going to change and that is okay.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
It's okay to change. It's okay to go towards the thing that you want to do, even if it means grieving that old part of you that needs to get put to the side or put away for these
Mhm.
habits to get integrated. Now it goes into the plan. We talked about the co-regulation.
Mhm.
We talked about all that, but like I think sitting with the portion of how do you make a plan? What do you make the plan about? Right? Like how do you structure
Mhm.
that? And
Yeah.
I wanted to tap into like how you do that versus how I do that because I know we're a little bit different in structuring our different goals.
Yeah. I learned this concept around building a 6 month plan. And it literally gives you instruction on how to build that, but it also too holds you accountable on how to build that. So we already discussed the first three steps around that. And the fourth one would be pretty simple. Now that you figure out your goal, right? Now you figure out your why. Now you kind of not rehash, but do like an inventory of why it didn't work last time, right? So you got that information now. Now you can look, okay, what are some ways that I could create this plan? First is build some action steps. So that way you have them written down. Like let's say I want to lose like 30 pounds in the next 6 months or whatever the case may be. All right. Well, what's my first step? Well, my first step is maybe hire a coach. Okay. What's the next step? Follow the plan. All right. Well, what's the next step? All right. Meal prep every week. The other one could be like workout, do all my workouts. Um, go on hikes, start building a little structure, steps like that. For me, when I was doing this 6 month plan, I wanted to do internal shift. I wanted to connect more with my inner child. So my first step was sign up for a course. I wanted to get a coach, but unfortunately, it was really expensive to hire a coach at that time. I didn't have 6,000 a month to pay for that, so I was like, "Oh, I could sign up for a course," which was perfect because it's guided. It's a guided inner child workshop. So I just used that and I implement all the steps of ways of connecting with my inner child. So I made it a point each week to hit some of those action steps and actually hold myself accountable and have an accountability buddy as well too. And we've discussed it already about having a men's group. We hold each other accountable. And each step that you put down, you write a due date. So now you have a due date. You're like, oh, I gotta get this done by next week. And this person that's my accountable buddy, he knows that. And so he's gonna remind me, he's like, hey Jose, you said last week you're gonna do this by next week. Where are you at with that? And it's not like calling you out, it's calling you forward with a very compassionate way.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the ways I like to plan that out. Like action steps is really, really important. And have at least three in the beginning so you can kind of start. off. And as time goes on, you'll build more steps as you expand on that.
Yeah, and I think that a few points in there were kind of like, what is your relatability to criticism or feedback?
Hmm.
Because there has to be some openness around there if you're going to co-regulate or have accountability buddy, which, like, you and I, we have like a friendship that goes back 16 odd years, and we say some abrasive stuff to each other. If it was like, if I said that to an acquaintance, I probably wouldn't be their acquaintance anymore. And that's like, just because we were brothers and we know each other at this point, there's full
Yeah, yeah,
acceptance. So when you're
yeah,
expressing some things, there's an air of like, don't tell me what to do, but I'm like, I've tempered that to be open to like, okay, this person loves me, they're calling me forward on something that I expressed to them. Let me take that deeper into like how I can integrate that
yeah,
feedback, right? So I
yeah.
do like the examples that you expressed, and I think for me, breaking it down further into the actionable items. So the way that I structure things is there's an idea, then there's the why, and usually from that idea and the why, that comes to like, all right, what is stopping me from doing that?
Hmm.
I'll look at the finances, I'll look at the environment, I'll look at my time management, and from there I'll be like, okay, what is the things that I could start doing towards that, or like, what do I want to be doing? I'll try and meditate or imagine what it'd be like, let's say doing stuff for like videography. I'll imagine myself at a venue recording things like, what do I look like? What demeanor do I have to bring forward to it, right? Because it's
Hmm.
not just the equipment, it's not just the time management, it's also the mindset of this of like, there's a level of confidence if you're going to be in someone's face with a camera, right? Especially if you're introverted. So there's different works in there. So what I'll do from that big goal is I'll chunk it into smaller digestible pieces of things that I want to
Digestible
work
pieces.
on.
Yeah.
And what this looks like is like, do I have basic equipment to get started? What are the ideal equipment? I'll put that to the side as optional. And then the portion of, okay, I don't feel confident in my skill set. What can I do to give more time to my skill set? I'm like, well, what if I went out and recorded different compositions, maybe 3 a week or something of short videos? That way I'll get the idea of it. Then I'll look back at it and post and be like, oh, I could do this differently. Then I'll be able to show someone like yourself, like, what do you think? Be open to
Yeah.
feedback. That's
Yeah.
that portion. And then like the other aspect is the video editing things, learning different softwares. Like currently I'm learning a whole new software. And there's a point of like, all right, I am heavily fearful of not being competent enough of this. The only thing stopping me from reaching that level of competency is time spent in it. So setting intentional time to get into
Hmm.
learning brain to be
Yeah.
able to soak all that in, right? And then eventually there's a point where I'm look back as like, what were the things of me being a videographer? I was like, well, I want to shoot a video of something, tell a story, and get paid for it. And I look back and I'm like, I've done all three things.
Yeah.
I'm at that phase where I used to dream about this, and I'm like, okay, what's next? Because there's a level that envision that I had early on of like what I envision myself. I'm not fully there yet, but I've accomplished some of the small goals that I've gone to towards that.
Hmm.
So there's actionable steps that I can take and celebrate the smaller things in between. And I like to structure it this way just because I check in with each bullet point of what step it is. Like if I need to go out into a crowd and ask like 35 people something because like I just want to get some like
What is?
improv skills on there, I'm terrified at that. So if I'm terrified at that, what can I do to adjust that to a smaller digestible step? It was like, let me hit up some of my friends of like, can I interview you? Because I'm more comfortable with that. So it's being able to adapt to get towards the bigger goal and then working towards that
Hmm.
bigger goal to then get the bigger goal. And it sounds like a lot of work because fuck it is,
Yeah.
but it goes back to like when you are feeling down and like out and whatnot, there's a level of support and also remembering your why,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And also, as you're saying all this, it reminds me of meeting yourself where you're at, and also to pushing your edges, of getting uncomfortable, adjust. And I mean, you pretty much talked about, some of the practices that you do, some of the disciplines, because that's what's going to actually hold you accountable. It's the practices and the discipline that you implement in your life to hold yourself accountable in taking those actions.
Yeah.
And like you said, the why is the main reason why we're doing this, but the action is what actually makes it happen.
There's a fine line in here because like I went from I think maybe a year ago of getting comfortable in the meeting yourself where you're at to the point where I found it I was keeping myself in a procrastination state to
Mm,
now where it's the statistical thing of like the more that you spend time on something, the higher chances of success you will have at it. So two extremes, not doing anything and then doing the most. 0 to 100
yeah,
real quick, right?
yeah,
Finding that balance in between because humans are human. There's a dynamic way that we show up with our energy every day.
mhm,
One day I may be super motivated to get everything done. I'll channel that energy to where it needs to. And then at the next day, I may not want to do anything. Right. So honestly asking myself in those two moments of like, if I stayed up for 48 hours working on this thing because I had the energy, is that sustainable? Probably not. It's a little bit
yeah.
insane. Yes, it is. Maybe
Chaotic
doing
positive.
maybe doing 30 hours of this is a little bit doable based off the energy, but I will check in as it goes on of like, okay, what is the next few days schedule? Can I still do this consistently every day? I would
Hmm.
want to do this every day,
Yeah.
right? And even if that means getting on the computer, watching a YouTube video around doing stuff, so learning a new transition or effect in a software that I just want to learn more about, right? Because
Hmm.
that is low energy and like just staying in learning brain, and that's
Hmm.
fine,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I really love how you keep coming back to learning brain because that's a space of expansion and growth.
Of
That's where
course.
there's clarity. That's where actions is happening. When you're a survivor brain, there's not a lot going on there other than destruction. And you're in your head a lot. And there's no movement moving forward. So I really love how you emphasize that multiple times. So I just want to re-emphasize that again, that being in learning brain allows this to unfold in the way where you are moving forward, like you're safe. We're failing forward. Like learning brain helps you to move forward. Survivor brain, you're stuck. You're in those mental blocks. And I mean, we could definitely talk about some of those mental blocks too. But another thing I do want to add to what you're mentioning is finding support that could be successful. And I know we've talked a little bit on the last episode where instead of asking how, who could help me? Who can support me to be successful? Who has done this already? Who can I talk to about this? And so I just want to bring that up again because it's really critical when it comes to, building a structure and a goal that you want to achieve. Who's done this already? Like when you and I started this podcast, we didn't know anyone that did a podcast. We just did it and we put it out and someone sent it to a producer and then they reached out to us and then we connected with them and we hired him. So he was the who that we didn't know we needed. And he helped us a lot in our podcast. And now the other who that helped us was that person that reached out to us about the podcast. And that's what brought us back into the space again. So you never know which who is going to help you, but finding that who is such an important thing. Just want to bring that up again.
Yes, both on the points of getting into learning brain, actually sitting with that and like being cognitively available to receive information.
Hmm.
Like if I'm excited about learning something, like it's much easier to get into learning brain. If
Yeah.
there's some resistance in there, we'll probably segue into some mental blocks after this. There's probably some things that I need to do surrounding the actions that I take, the habits that are there, and like also the narrative that's going on underneath. But I still gotta like try to get into that state of mind. And
Hmm.
segueing into the who, yes, you're right. Everyone knows something that you don't. And that's the quote by Bill Nye that I've like lived by, right? It allows me to just like, speak open heartedly to anyone because there's always something like if I'm expressing something of like a problem that I'm at in a casual situation, then usually and this goes into like the 6 points of I forgot the actual name. But usually someone will know something about that topic or know someone that does. which goes into the concept of like there's a study done saying that like within 6 points of contact, you could find damn near anyone in the world doing anything. And like the example that they were using was like they asked some person in California. This was actual documentary like film thing. They asked someone in California, it was like, I need you to find someone that builds these garage doors in Michigan. And they used their thinking brain, their learning brain to like Google like who's around this area, who do I know? And like they called and within 6 points, six people they contact, they were able to reach that person.
Mhm.
Right. So if this is the case, then like even generalizing it further of like who knows something about this topic that I'm trying to traverse is out there. There's many people out there. You're not looking for one specific person. You're
Mm.
generalizing and looking at like who has done this before,
Yeah.
which broadens it further. So like maybe in 3 points of contact. But the point is acknowledging what it is, learning the why, and having the drive to be able to confidently or not confidently confide in those people that are around you or new people that you're meeting in the area, networking of like this is where I'm trying to reach. And I'm trying to find people in the area in the
Mhm.
space.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like going through the a mentorship program. Same thing. Either you can try and figure out yourself and trying to like go back and forth to learn different things, or have a concise type of thing of like this is what I learned not to do,
Right.
and
Yeah.
these are the things that help me push me forward, and you get the pros and cons right up front. And I mean, depending on your level of hard-headedness, like myself sometimes, I
Capacity wise,
I don't want to listen.
it'll take me a few times to do it.
So for me, that's my own stuff. And
Yeah.
what happens is well, I'll have that conversation, but I'm resistant to that. This is the blocks,
Mhm.
right?
Yep. 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 Yep.
And I'll ask myself, what is the narrative being painted here?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the story here? What is my belief or changes in this in my mindset that I need to incorporate to be open to
Yeah.
this advice? Because I know that's the goal that I want to the micro goal that I want to achieve to allow me to reach the next level of my own goal.
Yeah. And that's where the last episode comes in play, where you start questioning these things. You start questioning these beliefs, these mindsets that you've had for so many damn years. And once you start questioning those, now you can shift them like, okay, this is the belief that I've had for so many years. Okay, what's actually conducive to me right now? Is this pushing me towards my goal or keeping me stuck? And you'll know right off the bat. And once you could figure out what that is, okay, now all right, let's shift into what I can do moving forward. Everything's about questioning yourselves, not doubting yourself, but questioning your answers. Just like I shared the example was it Tuesday around my photography. I was like, I don't have the talent. I can't do photography. Like that's not my thing. I'm not a creative person, but I questioned it. You helped me question that, and I was like, no, I want to try this. All right, what are the action steps I could do? Well, I did the actions. Now I put myself out there, and it materialized into what it needs to materialize. But that wouldn't have happened unless I questioned that, and I had someone to support me and mirror that back to me. Without that, I wouldn't have figured that out. I would have probably still stayed small. I would have never thought I'd be a creative person that I am today. And that's opened me up even more. Like I could write now. Like I didn't know I was a writer. Like I could actually write. Like and I enjoy that part of myself that I could actually tell a story through my experience because I have a lot of experience. I have a lot to say. People love that. I didn't know I was able to do that. So now I'm using the energy that I got from photography and the creative energy into other aspects of my life. But that wouldn't happen if I didn't question that, if I didn't take the action and shift that mindset and turn it into a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. Um,
I like the photography one just because it literally paints the whole picture of what we're talking about. Because
yeah,
it started off with you saying, I want to do photography because I am envious of this person." Right? So these emotions that we generally don't like to look at usually have an underlying story in there. So
mhm,
for you, it was a desire or a want because you're like, man, I want to do that too. And there's nothing wrong with that. But underneath
mhm,
it, you looked at the where's this coming from?
yeah,
Right. And it was
mhm,
some outlet that wanted it to be happen, that wanted to happen. And then using the space of we were just conversating because we're trusted individuals. We could conversate what goes on in our individual lives. I look back at it at like what you're expressing, and I'm like, why don't you just go out there and do it?
Yeah,
Like, it's
simple.
just very simple, but like in your mind, it was very complicated. So
Exactly.
here's the reference of using co-regulation with
Yes.
trusted individuals
Right. Yep.
that could mirror back to you of like the things you're asking. For me,
Mhm.
it was like I want to do videography, and I bought the camera, and I kind of went with the photography thing for yourself. But it came to a point where like, why don't I just do the video stuff? Like,
Yep.
what's stopping me from there? Like, I had imposter syndrome of like, I don't know all these terminologies, and many YouTube videos later, I felt more confident in taking more of the action. That was through a long
Mhm.
timeline, right?
Mhm.
So then you on the photography thing started doing the actions, which is
Yeah. So I did
needed
actually.
to get towards the goal, right? It's the consistency and changes in habits and making intentional time for it
Yes. 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 Yes.
and
Yes.
learning to be comfortable with making mistakes because there's experience. I remember
Mhm.
the first
Yeah.
time that you got I think it was a 120 film and you were like, "Damn it. This whole roll's messed up." And that's okay. You were
It's
so
part of the process.
you were so angry and you had to let it out. I understand. And it was
And I
all a part
still
of the
do that.
process.
So it's yeah, I still do that. So that's okay. It's part of the art. It's part of the creative process.
And the same thing that goes on with the videography. If I recorded something at a different frame rate, I'm just like, damn it, now I need to slow it down.
Mhm.
Damn it. And I have to figure out other ways to adapt to that. And it gives me a
Mhm.
whole different tangent to learn about. And that's okay.
Yeah. So I do want to shift into something different. And we've been talking about the why, the goal, structure, all these things. And the next, I'm sure a lot of people feel this way. They're like, I don't have time for that. How am I going to do that? I have this, this, and this going on. I really want to focus on that. Create time for that. I know we have 24 hours in a day. I know we probably work 9, 10 hours, depending on your job. We're limited, but the why will make a big difference in creating space for that. Because when you create that space, it sets you up for success. So look at your life. Look at, okay, what are things that are happening in my life? Where am I putting this energy at? And are these things benefiting me? Are they adding to my life? And we can start questioning that and realize like, okay, maybe I could pull myself out of this situation. Or maybe I don't need to do that commitment because it's not serving me anymore. The time there has expired already. You just feel guilty for leaving. And I will share my experience. Like I felt like in AA, I was topped off already. I felt that the energy that I was putting in it, I didn't feel that I knew I could still provide to the space, but I wasn't getting a lot out of it anymore. And I felt like it was time for me to move on. And so in order for me to do the things that I wanted to do, which is coaching, photography, creating, I needed to create space for that. So I made a big decision to step away from something that took a lot of time out of my day. Like it took a lot of time, because I was sponsoring a ton of guys. I was going about 3, 4 meetings a week, and that's like multiple hours per day. And for me, I needed to make that decision. Yeah, there was fear around it because the unknown of what it would look like if I did step away. And that's something I had to step into, realize if this is what I really want to do, take that leap of faith. Just jump over. Just take it. I build a structure. I know what I'm doing. I know my why in the situation. I just need to take that step, that leap. And I did. Now I have all the space that I wish I had more space because I feel like I have my genius mindset creative flow is early in the morning and I'm at work and that takes a lot from me. That's why I'm working to get out of that. So I could be in more of my creative flow. So I create more and create more content and be more in my authentic energy. So that's one thing I do want to mention is where in your life are you putting energy that's not conducive to you anymore? And create that space for this new goal that you want to have in your life, the shift that you want in your life. Um, it's like if you look at the swimming pool, you have all these like balls in there. There's no space for new balls because there's just so many. So now you start taking some out, so you have new space for new things to come in. We got to create space for new energy to flow in. We can't do that if it's full.
I like how you touched on that topic of time management
Yeah.
and kind of incorporating how bad do you really want it,
Yeah.
because that's the underlying portion. Usually if I'm comfortable or distracted enough in the day to day, then that's taking up a lot of time, or in my head that's I'm prioritizing that. And I always pull in a little bit of the social media topic here because you and I both had navigated different ways to try to relate to social media in a healthy way, which
Mhm.
meant a lot of incorporation of self discipline. One of those ways is like, what are you consuming digitally or on the news or through your phone that doesn't need to be in there? Usually, like fear mongering or fear inducing things don't support me in the role that I need to get out and be in my creative flow. And one thing that you and I both did was like, well, you took a social media cleanse for a while, which you like, just deleted the apps, and your amendment to that was, I'm going to check it on my computer at home, which I'm like, oh, if he's doing that, I'm going to do it, co-regulation again.
Mhm.
And I did that for like maybe 4 odd months with Facebook, and maybe like a month with Instagram and whatnot. And that was definitely helpful. The other thing is changing who you're following on these platforms. Is it just a bunch of short video memes? Is it like not actually good thought provoking type of content? You could follow hashtags on Instagram, and I didn't know this, and this is like the fourth time I'm saying this on the podcast, but like follow different hashtags, like literally follow hashtag motivation, hashtag
Mhm.
like mindset or whatever, and like
Hashtag send it.
hashtag send it energy. You can see all our posts, um, because changing what you're consuming also changes how you habitually relate to things. If I'm watching short format content, my attention span is probably going to be shorter. If
Mhm.
I'm watching stuff that is not filling to my brain, the dexterity that I have of learning new concepts is going to be smaller. This is where it goes to incorporate different habits. Instead of doing this social media thing for like every 5 minutes, pull out my phone. How about I delete the apps and like I carry like a book around with me or something? And I've done that before, and read a few pages whenever I feel the inkling of that
Vegan.
dopamine release, right?
Yeah.
And it incorporates something new, and it starts changing the way that I relate to things. Of like this book that you can't. I'm not gonna say you can't read a book in a day. Generally,
People can.
generally the concept of reading a book is chipping away a few pages at a time, maybe chapter by chapter, right? So the goal is the same way. Once you start training your brain of doing similar things that take time, which is delayed gratification, you start relating to life like that. So reading a book or doing other activities of like maybe building, I don't know, a replica something model, like some of our friends do that, and it's delayed gratifications where you're setting intentional time to get into learning brain. Once you start doing it, you open the threshold further for incorporating something else. So there's a huge part of mindset combined with time management, because I thought before I didn't have the time for things, and that was a lie. There's always time for things.
Prioritizing it.
Usually, it's finding the priority of that. And mine was more on the social media and Netflix and YouTube side. And there's a point where I was like, this is not getting me to my goal. I have to stop doing this and integrate self discipline. And it's weird finding yourself reaching for your phone or the remote, and you're like, no, I
Yeah. Yeah.
don't want to do
I feel
this.
like doing that right now. I'm like, wait, I'm on a podcast right now. I can't do that.
Yeah. So then there goes some of the other points in the past few episodes of where I talked about incorporating either physical like talismans. Like I got the necklace here that I got as a kid. This is my inner child to stay connected with that.
Mhm.
Maybe having a wristband on your wrist. Another one of my friends had talked about that for habit changing, right?
Yeah.
Specifically around time management. If I'm going for the phone, like no, snap the wristband
Mhm.
and incorporate a different habit that is productive.
Yeah.
And eventually using the same concept for your goal. Like maybe you wanted to learn about something new. I'm just going to use the format of videography because that's what's on my mind, and the go with the examples. Instead of watching being 15 minutes on social media, why not I find a video on YouTube around a concept I don't know? Longer format, and it allows me to be like, all right, I'll listen to that. I'll get more into learning brain, and I'll expand that level or window of like learning as I do that. So I wanted to touch on that point because that's right. There is time management for it. If you say you don't have the time for it, you are lying to yourself. And I'm going to be
Yeah,
the one to say that very bluntly.
yeah. I mean, because we all say the same thing. Like, oh, that's I'm and that's something I've been able to really shift around saying that I don't have time. I do have time. It's just what is a priority in my life? Just I mean, just like even dating. Like when I say, "Oh, I don't have time for dating," I'm like, no, it's just not a priority. Or I don't have time for this. No, it's just not a priority, and that's okay too. It's like meeting yourself where you're at. But when it comes to like you want to achieve a goal and build something, like okay, now look at your life. Okay, what are some things I could remove so I could? What's so funny, man?
As you're saying this, the song "Walk It Like You Talk It, Walk It Like You
Fuck it, fuck
Talk
it,
It"
fuck it, fuck it,
is just
fuck it, fuck
going
it, fuck
going on in your in my head.
it. But it is walking like you talk it, like walk the talk. So yeah, it's all about creating space for it to flow new energy in. And um I'll touch on the next thing that I like to do, which is a vision. Write out your vision of this goal, implement the changes of achieving these results look like. Like what does that feel like? If you implement this structure, this discipline, what does that feel like? How does it look like? How does your life change if you're into space? What are some specific things that are happening in your life? And so I'll share some of my experience around this. So when I was doing the inner child work, I had to fully put myself in that position of abundance, of connection. I felt more alive. I felt more connected to my inner child. He had a voice. He could express himself. He had a lot of playtime. Had better relationships with people. I had a better relationship with myself. I had to envision myself of where I could see myself in 6 months after implementing all these things in my life that allow me to reach that goal. So having a vision of what that looks like really allows you to remember that why. Like, why am I doing this? Oh, because I wouldn't feel this way. This is where I vision myself to be at 6 months. And it's a constant reminder to yourself of why you're doing what you're doing. And I love that. I love visioning myself where what I could be at in a few months or in a year. With my creative flow, like photography. I love thinking where I could be at next year with it. I want to create a book. I want to have an art show. I want to be in a place where I create more and I'm loving what I'm doing. I still have the same joy and love for it, or even deepen that a little more. I want to have a bigger community with friends. I want to connect with more people. I want to help more people. I want to be in a space where I'm traveling the world and I could coach anywhere that I want. I don't want to be a 9 to 5 job anymore. These are the things I could really envision yourself being in and really feel into that. And that reminds you why you're doing what you're doing. It's okay to look forward at times, but don't forget the process of getting there. Don't forget where your feet are at and be grateful where your feet are at. That's something I tend to forget because I'm so thinking about the future, thinking about the end goal, and I feel really discouraged of what that looks like. But when I could come back in my body and back to where I'm at and look at my feet, I'm like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be at. I am taking the actions that I need to move in that direction. Do I want a little faster? Hell yeah, who doesn't? Who doesn't want that instant gratification? But I'm here for the long game. So I'm gonna take the actions to get there. I want this to be sustainable. I don't want this a one-time thing. I want it to be sustainable to move forward, where it is expanding out to other people. It is expanding out to my family that I want to have in the future, my kids, my wife, all that. I want everyone to be fed around me. Drop the mic. Done. No,
No, you bring up a good point because it's incorporating a meditative process, right? If I were to describe it, and I think there's a huge importance of that because, again, on that vibrational type of scale, the hope of them doing and being comes about when you fully embody it, when you're doing it and believe in it, right? Which comes into
Mm,
this place where you could minutely do this. The
yeah.
awesome thing about like human mindset or the human mind is that we can literally envision something and feel what that feels like. Like, you ever been falling asleep and then you're falling and your body goes, whoa, and
Yeah.
you wake up? It's the same thing, but this is setting intentional time to view that as a vision. What does it
Mhm.
look like? What does it smell like? What those the smells you see around that? What is your
Yeah.
environment like? What does it feel like to be around this? Who's around you? Who do you want
Yeah.
to be in there? Because then what it does, it doubles back down into the why. These moments help in times of feeling doubtful. These moments help in times of feeling anxious, right?
Yeah.
You feeling that you can't because you can, whatever it is. And the beauty of that is like amazing because you're literally sitting down and it intentionally hallucinating about something,
Yeah.
and then it happens,
Yeah.
and then you have those deja vu moments of like, it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these serendipitous moments happen once the mind shift happens in correlation with the actions.
Yeah. The body. Yeah.
So I like that you touched on that because having that vision, like the goal aside, I think I also touched on that when I was speaking of the videographer stuff, but like you have a goal which is very generalized. You break down into the steps, and then like this is one of those parts of the steps of like, what does it look like? What does
That is
this
so.
fully feel like, right?
Mhm.
And then adding specific things because that's what to look forward to.
Mhm.
I like that.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful place to be at. When you can envision yourself, you can feel into that. Like really embody it already without even being there. And it is a very meditative space. You don't need mushrooms to feel that.
Right, right.
Um, and
And
so go ahead.
uh I think I was going to segue into the
The
mental
last part.
blocks. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
mental blocks and things that may be stopping, and then we'll talk about announcements.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked to mental blocks. We kind of covered it with the limited beliefs, questioning that because mental blocks is just a limited belief. That's what it is. And when we could assess it in that way of like, okay, this is coming up, this is blocking me from moving. Okay, what is exactly is blocking me? Is it fears and insecurities, imposter syndrome? All that is limited beliefs. Inner critic is trying to keep you small. Opportunity, we talked about it's opportunity to look at it, reassess it, and shift that narrative of like, okay, this is what it is. I appreciate you coming up. You're trying to protect me, but I don't need that. And now you take the action to step into that. Only way to remove the imposter is by actually taking the action to embody what you actually trying to do.
Yeah, and I think in this sense, the first step is acknowledging.
Yeah.
If you've done these steps, and let's say there's a block in I'm having trouble meditating, or there's a block in I find myself subconsciously doing something different than the goals that I set down, the actual items that I set down to do it.
Mhm.
First step is awareness.
Mhm.
Awareness is something is going on that's not allowing me to take the next step that I know I need to do that is conducive to my health or the goal, and questioning that like you expressed. Where is this coming from? What happens when I think about the goal? Because then your body responds in a way and you're like, where am I holding this? In my stomach? That's
Mhm.
anger. In my upper back? That's anxiety. In my throat? I need to say something.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And from there, questioning like, what is the narrative? What is actually being said in my mind that's preventing me
Mhm.
from this? And going deeper into that, we spoke about this a lot in the last 3 episodes on YouTube. And seeing how we could change that narrative.
Yeah.
And if it's deeply rooted,
Yeah.
the deeper we have to go down. We talked about, how important therapy is in this, how important connecting to the inner child is, because a lot of it
Yeah.
stems from the inner child.
Yeah.
Um, and working through that. Sometimes it is breaking down that step into such a small one, and it feels like you're going against the grain, but you know it's good for you, and just kind of doing it anyways.
Mhm.
Kind of like when I use a timer, like one of the modalities I use when I don't want to edit videos or anything, even though I know it's something that's going to give me experience, I'll set out a timer for something that's digestible, maybe 30 minutes to like an hour and a half, depending on what my energy threshold is. And like, I'll do that. And when I find myself reaching for the phone, it's usually to check for what time is left and be like, all right, at the end of this, I'm going to have a cookie. And I'm conditioning myself. I'm
Oh,
literally
okay.
conditioning myself so that delayed gratification is what I'm trying to get to in the mindset. So I'm doing like three things at the same time. I'm getting something
Yes.
done, I'm working through a block, and I'm celebrating the small steps at the same time.
Mhm.
And that's usually how I've gotten through some of the mental blocks. Because what
Yep.
happens at the end of that, I look back, right? We're always looking forward, like you're expressing. To find balance, we look at where we're at concurrent to it. So the goal is, yeah, over here in the future, but where we started from, we're getting further and further away from that. So the gratitude that ends up being, you end up integrating in that space of like, look how far I've come. Yay, me. And you may express this small micro success to your friends and they can support you. And what this
Mhm.
does, it is conditions your like brain to like, yo, this is a good thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
In a way, this helps these like micro traumas that may be happening that may be blocking us. So like you
Mhm.
said, there are narrative shifts. There are being aware of what these narrative shifts are to then integrate to do the action. So I
Mhm.
wanted to speak on that because I think that that's very important because we're looking at it as like a clear cut and dry A to B type of thing with these multitude of steps, but the outliers are the the traumas that may be happening in there, and then we speak about that on this platform and the past few episodes of the modalities that we utilize to either go deeper, go back and question all that, and most of it is questioning it to
Mhm.
then work through it. And it
Yep.
may feel like a tremendous amount of work, but think about it. If you run into this one thing right now, the next time something feels the same, it's going to happen again. So if you're mending
Yep.
it here, you're preventing it from happening in the future, which is
Yep.
like why I'm a
And
huge proponent of doing inner work.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very way not way, but a really good description of, questioning that and shifting that mindset and doing the modalities that you need in order to get out of that block. And it's all energy, right? If you look at it through that lens, everything's all energy. And so maybe there is some energy that needs to be moved out of the body, whether it's to a somatic practice, whether it's to, like you said, screaming. Like today, I went through a edging process with one of my colleagues, and I didn't have anything to bring to the table. Next thing you know, I'm like crying in a session. Some stuff was coming up for me. I had this tightness in my shoulder, and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was just from working out, but it was actually this energy of like carrying a lot. I do a lot. I carry a lot, and sometimes I want to be held. Like I want someone to carry the load as well too. That's been my life. I've always carried the load because I didn't have a childhood. I had to grow up. I had to be an adult as a kid. And so I didn't know it was gonna come up today for me, right? And I just got into it and I felt like a huge release came over me. I'm like, oh man, I've been holding on to this. I had no idea. But I had to get in the space of being open and allow myself to connect with that sensation and allow it to express itself. And what was coming up for me was like, I need to scream. I just fucking did like a primal scream on the call. And it felt so good. Like it was beautiful. And that opened me up even more to be more of my creative self. And then reminding me, like, yeah, this is fucking beautiful. This is amazing, the work that we get to do. We get to do this. I don't have to. I get to do this. It's an honor, it's a privilege to be in the space of healing and being in the space to help others as well too and share my experience. So I'm feeling a lot of gratitude just to be here and you guys actually listen to us. Like that's just beautiful. And that's just the wonderful aspect of doing inner work. We get to change that paradigm that was conditioned to us. And we could create our own paradigm that's more in line with us. And so I'll leave with you guys with this and to kind of for myself to put a bow tie of this whole episode is we talked about everything. Okay, now the last part that I like to do is rate myself per week. Have 2 days per week where you rate yourself. Where am I at in that scale? 1 through 9. And each step, write down little bullet points of how it feels in different times. So for 1, it's the worst. 9 is the best. So 9 can be, oh wow, I feel expansive. I feel connected to my inner child. I feel super connected to it. I'm in more levity. I have more play in my life, more clarity. The first one can be, I still feel disconnected. I don't feel aligned with my inner child. He still feels scared. And then you could build it out. And you can use that scale to rate yourself. How did I do this week? Depending on your steps that you took that week. So now you're comparing, not comparing, but you're holding yourself accountable, and you're gauging your progress in your steps and your goal. So I love doing that. That's something I like to implement in my life, and something that I like to do with my clients as well too, because I want them to feel like there is progress in their life. And then there's not, you hold yourself accountable to that and humanize yourself. Like, okay, you didn't take these steps this week. This is how you felt this week based off your rating. Okay, what can we do to move forward? Let's incorporate compassion. Let's incorporate some love. Okay, now let's do some action behind that. We're not robots. We are humans, and things are gonna come up for us, and that's okay. It's okay. But also too, we gotta hold ourselves accountable too, to take the steps that we need to, and also to give ourselves a space to rest and play, because we need that.
Yeah, it's kind of like I really like how you brought in the scale because that is self accountability.
Yeah.
That is like kind of goes hand in hand with the journaling aspect of expressing what's coming up. And this is a concise way of like, how do you feel overall in this, and write that down. Now look at
Mhm.
your week of like, what are the actions that you took? What are some of the adjustments you can make? It's not to bash yourself or
No.
uh, self deprecation. It's an honest assessment of how you feel and where you're trying to go to then
Mhm.
start shifting that. Usually at the very
Mhm.
beginning, it's lower rating, maybe because like the energy isn't
You're
fully
just
there,
starting.
or
Yeah.
it's a super high rating because you just went full send it mode. Yeah. And whatever it may
Amit.
be. Yes, yes, that's literally me. I just have an idea, just fully send. But with that comes burnout, and the other one may become like comes with motivation, and it's a slow ramp up. Either way, it's human, and you
Yeah.
get to realize this by having this self accountability. So I really like that you expressed that. So if I were to go through all these actionable steps, you ask yourself, what is it that you want to change? What comes up? What is something that you want to try out? And why? The why is going to carry you very far. Of like, I'm doing this to be expansive in like something that I really want to do, or like maybe the inner child is crying out deeply to just want to do this thing, or maybe it's like a bucket list item. I don't know, but your why is what you're going to come back to time and time again, and from there you end up planning it out, writing a brief plan around what you want to achieve, what are the like maybe chunkable steps that you want to get to there, and if you're
Mhm.
having some blocks around that or some fear or some resistance to it, break it down further and then
Yeah.
incorporate support. Your peers are there for a reason. And like we have different communities that we go to for different items, like photography versus like my cars versus business, stuff like that. Reaching out to these folks where it is seen, held, heard, and reflected back to you, being open to the criticism or feedback around it will take you further. Right? And then may go in there from like changing the narratives to changing the habits. We talk deeply about that because it asks yourselves, how badly do you want this? Right? So integrating both the human side of things and the discipline side of things, and finding that median, because that's going to shift as the days
Mhm.
go on, to the
Yeah.
point where you're talking about accountability between support groups, friends, and yourself with this modality of rating yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how you get it done. Get it done.
Get her done. So yeah. Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you, Amit, for contributing to this episode. It's beautiful.
Of course. And with that, like we wanted to also express an announcement about we're going to do a test group. We're looking for 10 guys that are
And guys.
willing and able to show up. We're probably going to meet in a couple weeks from now. We're still setting up the final stuff around it.
Mhm.
Mostly trying to see what you guys are looking for, what you guys are looking to change, to shift, to get
What are you
into
needing?
action. What do you need? And if you are interested in this, DM the Hella Spiritual Podcast Instagram at Hella
Yeah.
Spiritual Podcast, or email at hellaspiritualpodcast@gmail.com saying I'm ready or something of the
Yeah.
sort. And we will get
Yeah.
back to you and get you signed up. We're looking for the first 10 guys
Yes,
specifically
10.
for this. Anything you want to add for that program?
No, we're excited to bring this out. We've been discussing it for a while. We've seen the benefits of having a men's group and holding each other accountable, and having another guy to see us. Like, I've cried many times in our men's meeting. You guys helped me. like literally held me in that space. I've been on the phone with you, bawling my ass off, and you helped me through that. There's power behind that. And so we want to create something for other men that need that in their lives that probably don't have, or maybe they have a group of friends, but they're not in the space of the expansion or they don't have the capacity for it. So we want to create something that is safe, um, and it could be a brotherhood, and it can be whatever you want it to be if you're open to it. So yeah, Amit said all the description on how to sign up for it. We're excited. Yeah, we're just trying to expand more. So we're excited for that.
Yeah, and if that sounds like something that you may be needing, or it aligns with you in your life, or that you're like kind of curious about and want to just participate in it because you want to achieve a certain goal, first 10 guys DM to Instagram at Hell Spiritual Podcast, or email saying I'm ready in the header to hellspiritualpodcast at gmail.com.
Yeah.
And with that, opening up to the general things, like we love having community, we love reaching out, we love engaging with the community. This platform has helped us a lot with that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to send us a message talking
Mm-hmm.
about the feedback, or talking about something that you may be working through. Something that you want to hear us speak about. Send it to the Hell Spiritual Podcast
Send
Instagram.
it.
Send it energy. So you could message us at Hell Spiritual Podcast on Instagram, Jose at Jose aka Che, myself at ASG240. We
Yep.
love talking to you all. We love having these conversations. It's actually what helped us get on this platform to begin with.
Yeah. You are the reason why we're here. And also, too, I mean, the reason why we even have a podcast is because someone else suggests that we should have one. So, like, the reason why we started is because someone suggested it. And then the reason why we started up again is because someone reached out to us about it. So, you are the reason why we're here. We're thankful for that. So, thank you.
Exactly. So those are our who's, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, stay safe, people. Have a good time. Happy Friday. And we'll see you next time.
Likewise, have a good Friday. Have a good weekend. Stay warm if you're in the Bay Area or in the places that the storm is hitting. Please be safe. Our prayers are with
Yes.
you. And
Yeah.
again, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.